Hi, I'm Julie Gibson, and I'm a rancher here in the panhandle of Texas.
John Mark Gibson, Julie's husband. My dad and I have an operation separate from Julie's, but both here in the Texas panhandle, enjoying the drought like everybody else.
I've been running cattle my whole life, and we've tried lots of different products. This last winter we had a pretty rough drought and came out with our cows looking really poor, and we we needed to do something different, change up our program to help with just our overall success of our ranch. And so we started looking for other options and found Riomax, and we've been really pleased with the results that we've seen so far. We've only been on it for almost a year now, and so we've gotten to see just overall results. It's been really impressive.
My dad and I, we got our first set of cows in 2013, so just over 10 years. We typically run our cows on grass year-round. If we can find stalks, we'll put them on stalks in the winter. But last year, coming out of our winter pastures, our cows looked really poor as far as overall condition. Their hair looked bad, and going into our summer pastures, it looked just like we were putting them back on winter pasture. It was, no green, no protein, and we knew we had to do something different to kind of maximize our forages that we did have. The liquid protein supplements that we were using just weren't going to be enough. Like Julie said, we switched over to Riomax and decided, okay, we're going to give this a year and really see what results we've got. So we were able to see what the cattle were starting in the summer and going through that first calf crop, what those calves look like, and then now we're starting to see calves hit the ground that have, through their whole gestation cycle, their mamas have been on Riomax, and just seeing the overall condition of those cows look like totally different cows from last year to this year. Out of our 4, 5, and 6-year-old cows, we were at just over 98% breed back. So really impressed with those numbers. And then on our 2 and 3-year-old cows, we weren't quite that good. We were just over 91%, but we also had some heifers that calved later in the summer, after we had already put bulls in with them, so they didn't quite have the opportunity to breed back. Out of that 4, 5, and 6-year-old bunch, another impressive number there was over 88% of those were bred back in their first cycle. So not only did we get impressive breed back numbers, but hitting that first cycle was another big thing for us. They would have been on Riomax for probably 30 days before we put bulls out with them. 30 to 45 days, something like that. It didn't take long for us to really see a difference from when we put Riomax out there. Like I said, they were in really poor condition. The pastures we put them onto going into the summer, there was no green. There's just been no moisture, so it's not like they were getting a whole lot of nutrients through the grass and forages that they were getting.
I remember them coming home from checking pasture and fresh calves on the ground 30 days, and they couldn't believe that they saw the bulls already working. So those cows were cycling. I mean, there's the proof of the numbers, but early on, before we had the proof of the numbers, we were seeing, we just couldn't believe those cows were already cycling back that fast.
The thing about our set of cows is my dad's a cow trader, so we cycle through a lot of cattle. Getting those kind of breed back numbers is impressive in itself, just because we didn't know the history of those. So it'd be about half of those were put together cows, and then ones that we've had a history of 3 or 4 calves on them. So.
Cows have been on it since June, I guess, on the Riomax. So we were haying and just I don't remember what percent. Well, I think we're feeding a 42% tub, 40-something% tub, just a protein tub. And we was taking 4 bales of hay down there at least twice a week. So they was getting about a bale of hay a day. We was taking 100 pounds of cake every time, so 300 or 400 pounds of cake a week, plus at least 8 bales, and we hadn't fed them nothing, no hay, and just feed them cake to keep them gentle this time, you know. The grass is not, it's pretty short anyway, because that's about all you can run down there in that country. And we've been going down there every 2 or 3 weeks, and we'll just take a sack or 2 of cake and cake them when we just keep them coming to the pickup, keep them gentle. And first time we caked them, you'd go along there and feed them cake, and they just keep following the sack, you know. They wouldn't stop eating. Wouldn't even. I fed 2 sacks, and they never stopped till I got to the end. And then they went back and started eating a little of it. And I come back 2 hours, and they had finished it, and they were all laying within 20 foot of that where I fed them. And then you can go down there today, and they've got probably 15, 20 calves on them, and they'll come to the cake. But the calves really look good. That's really one thing that amazed me. And which they're twice as good as it was last year. Cows look good, and the babies really look good. So lots more condition. They were thin. Well, we had to bring them home last winter. They got so thin. No moisture, you know. It's tough everywhere, you know.
We usually put out cane hay. When there's an opportunity, we put out wheat hay. You know, this year those bales are $175 a piece. And so we felt confident in buying grass hay. And not only just grass hay, it's CRP baled hay out here. So that's a lot lower quality hay, and we're paying like $85 a bale for that. So we're talking $90 difference in one bale. And so when you're buying that in bulk, that adds up really quickly. And when your condition of your cows and your calf crop are the same, if not better, on a lower quality hay, the only thing that's consistent with that is the Riomax. And so it's been really great to see the savings with our hay on that level, and we know that constant is Riomax. Another thing is, I wasn't a big caker. My cows were broke to cake, but the Gibsons were religious cakers with their cake wagon, and they haven't hooked it on once this winter. No cake bill now this winter, and they're feeding the lower quality hay, and the consistency there is just the Riomax.
Julie says it all the time. She's like, our cows are just happy. If we need to take a bale of hay out, we can't do. It's a separate trip. So fuel savings is a big deal, especially with today's fuel prices. We run cameras on all of our water tanks, and it's always impressive to see, or kind of funny to see, mid-morning to mid-afternoon, you'll just see those cows just laying around, you know, just chewing their cud. And you know, if they're just laying around chewing their cud, they're not out eating grass. So those 4 or 5 hours throughout the day that they're just lounging around, just that time alone saves on grass. It's kind of funny to see, but at the same time, those cows are fat and happy. So.
Just even for my set of cows here, you know, I can put a bale out, and I just noticed it lasts longer. You know, I can put, for almost 60 cows out here, I can put a grass bale out, and it lasts over a couple days usually. And because they just pick at it, because they're getting more out of every bite, like we know that Riomax can do, and you can just tell those microbes are working to where these cows are just working more efficiently, and they're just content on a lot less feed.
Looking at all the different benefits was a huge thing, but just knowing how poor or how little grass we were going to have, we had to figure out some way to extend every blade of grass that we possibly could. We know we have limited pastures. What can we do to possibly extend that as much as possible? The breed back, those, overall animal condition, those were bonuses. But yeah, stretching every blade of grass is probably the key contributor for us.
Well, when we heard how much it was a tub, it was kind of a shock factor. But then being explained how it really works and your daily cost, and then you compare that to other products, it's the same if not less because of that consumption factor that you're dealing with. So we initially, I think, got like 3 ton or something between both operations. We're like, hey, we're gonna try this out. You know, we didn't want to go in too deep. And quickly, I mean, within 2 weeks, I noticed a difference with our cows. Like, I noticed their hair coat was better, their hooves were even shiny. I mean, within 2 weeks, we saw a difference. And that's when we were on grass and we were in a drought and we were ready to see some difference. And so we quickly made a reorder and never looked back. To be honest, the cost isn't that big of a factor when you're seeing all of these other results and how it's simplifying our whole program, and the other things that we're cutting out, like the higher haze, cutting out cake, and the convenience of not dealing with all the loose mineral and the gas prices of putting it out every week and all of that. Like, when you cut all of that out and you still have a lower daily cost than other products because of that consumption, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, we really sat down, and Julie's always the one that's putting out the mineral and the tubs and stuff, and so we just really, you know, went through, okay, how many bags have you been putting out, you know, on a weekly basis? And when you total all those costs up, you know, it pencils out pretty quick. So
it may seem like a higher upfront cost because that, you know, you just see that bottom dollar, but if you really calculate what you were paying monthly on these other products and you add it all up, you know, it pencils out every time. The big thing for me was the convenience of the product, because it just took out the guesswork of it too. The product that we were using beforehand was a loose mineral, and it had a lot of different options. And so when you put out for stockers, you'd have a different one. When you put out your cows, you have a different one. And oh, now it's a different season, so I need to change it up. And then you've got the lick tubs on top of it, and they would just blow through them. You know, you'd get it put out, you kind of felt like you had some time before you had to do it again, and it was, before you turn around, it was time to just put it out. And it seemed like they were always running out of something. And so that was just a constant thing on my to-do list. So when we have stockers on wheat, I'd put loose mineral out, and I mean, you could go out there the next day and it'd be gone. And a big part of that is because of the salt in the product, and so they just blow through it. And so to know I can put one product out for any genre of cattle was huge, and the time savings with it, because the labor intensity of all of that was just very time consuming, to where I wasn't able to focus on management of my cattle as much as just the labor part of keeping mineral and, you know, protein tubs out. And so in the winter, you know, they would just blow through those protein tubs, and I felt like we were just always one step behind the cattle, because we couldn't keep up with the demand of what they were needing with that high consumption. And so when we were able to switch to Riomax, and you put it out at the correct ratio and it's lasting a month, that gives so much more time to do other more important things for your program. And so the stress level, I feel like, has lessened on all of us overall. Just knowing that the cattle have everything that they need, and they're happy and content, and they look awesome. And I don't feel like I'm on that rat wheel of just always trying to play catch up with them. It is an all-in-one product, and so there is no more bags of mineral, and there's no protein tubs. It's all one, so I can put one tub out for 50 head and be good for about a month, and to not have to have special feeders for the loose mineral and go chasing these protein tubs all the time around the pasture. You know, it's just less product altogether that is put out for that same ratio of cattle. So the simplicity of that has been huge for us. Just huge convenience factor. You know, you go load up a ton of 40 bags of mineral, and it's an all-day thing to go deal with that, and then you turn around and maybe even the next week you got to go do it again. So to just have this out and know that we're good for a month, and just to keep the salt out, you know, we do that at the same time, and then you're good for the month, and that's just been huge to have all in one product. I do feel like Riomax has given me possibly a little more confidence in just my ranching program and my knowledge of what the cattle need. You know, I had never really looked deeply into what all that entailed until I was introduced to Riomax, and it was interesting. It was a different kind of way of looking at supplementation for your cattle. And so having that simplicity and the convenience of that, how we were saying, like, gave me more time to focus on other things. But just having the knowledge of knowing they truly are taken care of with this product, where I'm not having to search for anything else and looking for the next fad thing. Like, this is something I think will be consistent for these cattle, you know, for as long as I have them.